Everyone. Let's get started. Thank you, everyone, for making the time and joining us for AI Sprint number 6. And today is going to be a super interesting one, which is the use of AI very specifically for consumer use cases in inciting. So, I'd love to introduce our speaker, Anup Pradhan from Swiggy. Anup leads consumer insights, behavioral science, and user behavior research at Swiggy. He has a long career in consumer insights, starting out with conventional consumer insights before the AI world in Nielsen and leading consumer insights for General Mills. But over the past decade, Anup has been with technology platforms that all of us use very, very often, starting out with Uber and for the past 6 odd years with Swiggy, leading user behavior insights that feed into feature development, feature enhancement, and understanding consumer behavior patterns to actually ideate on newer features and modification and driving very actionable growth strategies. Interestingly, we reached out to Anup via a recommendation from AI itself. Not surprising for how DSGCP operates, but we wanted to explore this topic in a lot of detail. We've had chats with some of you on this as well. And while doing some research on where it's been implemented well, AI itself recommended Swiggy, and we got in touch with Anup, and he has agreed to host this session today. We're looking to cover uses of AI in really inciting at scale, removing the conventional cost and time barriers in terms of qualitative interviews. And hey, can I request somebody who is speaking to be on mute? Thanks. So the session today should hopefully cover some very interesting ways in which we can remove the time barriers in getting consumer insights at scale that can be super useful and actionable for our brands and businesses to drive growth. So with that, over to you, Anup, to take forward the session.
Thanks, Tushna, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in. And thanks to Urmit and Tushna for planning this. As Tushna said, I've kind of done inciting for the last 19 odd years in different capacities, different companies. And the most recent stint has had a chance of where I have actually kind of I'm leveraging a bit of AI in the work that we do. So it's an exciting topic. Over the next few minutes, what my slides are essentially going to cover is two parts. One is that I'd like to give some introduction to the tenets of consumer inciting itself. I know the audience over here may not have dedicated teams doing it for you. So just spend some time in deciphering or decoding some amount of the consumer inciting principles of the tenets that we have. Once we understand that, then we kind of layer it with DIY tools and how AI can actually help us do things at scale and low cost. So what I'm going to speak about is lot in the DIY space, things that you can actually do. They are anchored in the principles of low cost, quick turnaround, and there are obviously going to be better ways to do it. There are going to be experts who will do the same thing with more precision, but that's not the focus of this conversation. At least there are occasions when you may feel the need to kind of reach out to them, and you should, but this is more around quick efficient way, and how can you get your hands dirty, and how can you actually kind of push your teams in pushing the adoption of AI, because frankly there is no reason why we shouldn't do it, because it's really there with us, and it unlocks a lot of things that otherwise were very, very difficult. Yeah. So I think that's the context of how we should approach this session. I'll move on. Okay. So where we start, right? Let me start with the first. What exactly is an insight, right? It's more than an observation. When you think about an insight, there are data-driven observations that we'll have, but an insight is something which is a non-obvious truth. It's the why behind the what. And a good test for an insight for you should be that when you think about it in hindsight, it becomes obvious. But at that point in time, it is not obvious, right? I'll give you some examples of this. The famous one is about Betty Crocker. Betty Crocker is a company that makes pancake, but how did they kind of really scale? They scaled on the basis of an insight where they said that mothers actually want to take one last step in their kitchens to show to their kids that it is they deeply care for, and they have actually made the pancakes. There was a ready-made mix available, but they gave a signal to the mom saying that you should just add a bit of egg at home before making the pancake, and that actually kind of really made a big difference in how they were looking at their sales as well. There's a very famous video on toothbrushes, how kids' toothbrushes were invented, and that happened with field visit, where you saw how kids have their hands, which are like small, and how therefore toothbrushes made for adults were not really suitable for them. And on that insight, they could actually open up a category, which was the kids' toothbrush. Closer home, what we have done with a brand on Instamart called Noise, which is essentially we understood from consumers that everybody wants to kind of do an upgrade on their everyday essentials. There are certain compromises with respect to quality, long shelf lives that consumers do undertake. How could we actually solve for it where at not a disproportionately high price, we are actually able to offer value, freshness, high quality to the user. So these are all anchored in consumer truths, in behaviors, and when you search for it, you would actually go ahead and find out how the consumer behaves, and that's what we should actually aim for, and that's essentially what an insight is. Now, where AI helps is that AI actually kind of stops us from guessing and actually kind of gives us the depth and speed that we need, right? Broadly, in a consumer research setup, there are two key lenses to take. One is a qualitative, you would have heard this word before, and the second one is quantitative. Qual is all about texture, the nuance. It is about the why. If something has happened and you want to understand, you would go to a few consumers, you would try to look into your online panels and world and try to understand the why. So, as I said, it's all about texture and nuance. Very, very important to get that story behind what is happening. While quant is all about scale, it's about how many, it's about validation, it's about feeling comfortable, it's more data centric. And typically or traditionally, one preceded the other, or it was like you had to choose that, oh, is it a qualitative question or is it a quantitative question? But today, AI allows us to do like qual at scale. So you can get the why and you can get it at scale. And that's the power of leveraging technology, leveraging new methods to give us that. And we'll see how that kind of really flows through, right? Essentially, in the what part, there are two parts, right? Like in the inciting world, we'll cover the both of them. One is the what, and the second one is the how. What does an insight essentially, or an insights function, or what are the different types of consumer inciting areas that one can actually look at? The first pillar, and this is, there is no science behind it, this is the way I generally define it. There are three pillars to look at when you think about any insights vertical or any inciting spaces, so to say. What is changing in our culture? How is the landscape really evolving? And here you can think of the horizon shifts. It could be small, it could be micro, it could be really large, right? But you're scanning for information and trying to spot what is happening. Like healthy eating, for example, is a trend which is here and now, but sometime it's been it's been growing over a period of time, and now it's finding avenues in the newer and newer categories, right? The proteinization that has happened. Now you're entering protein in categories that otherwise would not have been possible earlier. So everybody's thinking about it, and this is one space of inciting that you should think about, always looking around the corners, always looking around, spotting what is the next trend or the current trend that you can actually capitalize on, right? For example, how is gifting evolving is a question that is a trend spotting. How do we now change gifting? And gifting can have different dimensions, and we were doing some work in this space. We are seeing that there is a whole economy of the return gifts that comes up. So when we think about gifting, we think about really big, large gifts, wedding gifts, big anniversary gifts, but it's not true. There are smaller micro segments which will grow disproportionately in the economy or in the space of the large category. And it's your job to kind of really find out these smaller moments. So gifting is an example. Toys is again an example of that. One may find toys as a category overall to be like maybe more flattish, but I mean, you think about premium toys, and that's really growing. People are actually thinking about what should they talk about, how to avoid screen time for their children, and you will be able to spot these through research techniques, and then kind of offer what you want to kind of really capitalize on the trend. So that's generally the space or a vertical about trend spotting. So when you think about inciting, think of a pillar or think of a engine around trend spotting. It could be media trend spotting. What is the kind of content that gets consumed today by tier one, by tier two? What is it that I can do in that content? How do I kind of really channelize my brand's energies in that? Is another area of trend spotting. So it's not always about category trends. It could be about behavioral trends. It could be about media trends. And this is one space in trend spotting, which we'll talk more about as well. But this is one pillar. The second pillar is, so if you think about a funnel, trend spotting is at the right at the start, right? The second part is the evaluation part. You've always heard consumer good companies speak about it in the lens of concept testing, idea testing. This is that, uh, but now we have more powerful tools that can actually help us on this one, right? So you can think of before launching something. I have 5 different ways of saying the same thing. I can actually pre-test it with my consumers in a fast way. In a digital world, it's much faster. We're talking days or hours instead of weeks of the erstwhile world, right? So we recently launched something, Swiggy food, where we said that there's an eat right as a proposition, where we are actually encouraging consumers to eat the right thing. And there's a lot of work that we actually made into kind of putting it out there, before putting it out there, to understand what were the needs from consumers who are actually thinking about health, but at the same point of time also consumers who are generally not aggressively thinking about health, but it's there on their mind. And you'll find that the proposition now kind of serves uh, those needs in a much better way, in an easier way. But you can also kind of think about evaluation or concept testing your ideas, like Bolt, which is a 10-minute deliveries. Again, like you would find into stress testing your idea through an experiment, through a lemon stand, as consumer good companies would call it, or you can actually kind of really do this before the launch. So you actually kind of go ahead and put it out there, whether it will work or not. It just reduces the risk in some shape and form, right? The last bit is more like whether we call it sentiment, whether we call it measurement, but an important factor or an important dimension. We need to measure the pulse of the consumers as we put things out. Are we serving the consumers in the right way or not? And this is one important dimensions where teams should focus and have dedicated charters around, which is the real-time pulse of your users or non-users as well, right? So when we put out something, how are consumers at an unprompted level or at a prompted level really responding to the proposition or to the offering? Now, here again, AI can play a big role in kind of getting us unprompted signals where you're not really, you're not actually asking, what do you think about eat right? What do you think about a Bolt? You are just listening in, and you're figuring out what the consumer is naturally telling you. But it is critical for you to know, because you will know what's really working well. At the same point of time, you will also know where does the competitive landscape overall stand, or where does the categories driver stand. What are the category pain points that could be something that could be white spaces, or also get a more post-launch feedback for any innovation that you have put out over there. And there are again different dimensions per se. But if you think about the overall landscape, there is trend spotting, there is evaluating of ideas and concepts. And once something is out there in the market and more real time, think of measuring your sentiment and measuring the pulse of what we are doing. This is generally the what of an insights professional slash function or an area of expertise will go for. How it operates is broadly again in 3 dimensions, and these are more like in the sequential area, right? You start off with something which is called as designing. Designing is like, who should I go and speak to? The traditional research engine will always have these gears where you would make design questionnaires, you will design discussion guides, um, you will put a filter on how many can you go and actually speak to. There will be a sample size construction, all of that hard work that you will put through, because that is where your inputting or strategy of actual execution will go into place. The next step sequentially is going to be capture, which is actually conducting interviews. So you will need professionals who will actually conduct interviews for you. You will make sure that the data quality is absolutely sacrosanct. You would make sure that there are surveys that are run in the right appropriate way. The immersions or focus group discussions being actually conducted in the stipulated time frame that you need. And the last bit is the heavy lifting, right? Which is the synthesis. So now that you've got these so much data, coding of that in an open-ended format, building reports, this is the place where generally things would get slower. You would actually try to kind of put things together in an analysis phase, and you would actually analyze it. Now, the spoiler alert is that AI plays a role in all three areas and has like really shortcut
So
the
idea,
whole.
what is the shipping? Even if it is zero, right? Add the shipping cost as zero.
Yeah. So the good news is that AI has actually helped us kind of really go at scale and high speed across all the three dimensions. I'll cover how in a bit as well, right? So yeah, like I was saying, now there is this unifier, and again, as I was saying, you have the power with you to do all of this by yourself. I mean, that's where I think there is a misconception that often people feel that this will need a lot of effort, this will need a lot of bandwidth or resourcing, which is not true. You can start small, you can start with something and then kind of build from it. Right? That's my personal belief on this. And I'll show you some of the ways that we have adopted this and some of the ways in which we can actually go ahead and do it, even in the what section and as well as in the how section. So yeah, this is the what part of it, right? Like we heard the different dimensions. And now if you were to think about how AI can transform the what part, uh, earlier we were always like we spoke about, we were limited with how many people can we talk, how many hours will we spend in doing this, or even if you knew that social media was there, how can I actually go ahead and how much time will I spend in scrolling the social media? There'll always be the trade-off of time, cost. uh, AI is kind of pretty much removed all of those boundaries for us. If you spend time with an AI tool, I can assure you that you will find the answer with what you're searching for. You have to be judicious, and then there are certain caveats around it. But if you, it'll do everything for you. You just have to use the right tools and the right context setting. So from a world of snapshot research, think of this as continuous intelligence, right? I mean, that's the transition that we are talking about over here. So the first one, for example, like if we were to talk about is all in the zone of about scraping the fringes, right? I mean, you would know that we're not actually looking for what happened in 2024 or whole of 2025. We are here now and we should talk about what's there people are talking about in 2026. uh, there are tools that are available that we can pretty much deploy. There are experts who are actually really good at spotting trends using AI as well. But what we can do is we can also do this by ourselves and by scraping the fringes, you're able to identify friction points. What you're searching for is those moments where consumers are actually expressing themselves in an unprompted way and thinking about, let's say, their own workarounds or hacky solutions that they are contemplating. Those are the white spaces that you're really interested in and going deep into it. Those are the friction points that where you actually want to kind of go ahead and investigate. What I mean is that AI can fully map the territory for you, and then you kind of identify. Like I said, if I have to do this for uh, different categories, I'd find a lot of things over there, and then I think I'll want to spend my judgment in only kind of going and figuring out, yeah, this is the one that I actually think is an opportunity and go deeper over there. But you can let AI kind of really scrape some of these tools that are available where there is a lot of chatter that's happening at an unprompted level. So what are the sources that we can potentially deploy, right? I mean, there is Reddit, there is Twitter or X, there is YouTube, there is Play Store reviews for certain apps. These are sources where consumers come and express themselves. Uh, and It's not necessary that it has to be always negative. It is not necessary that it has to be something that is related to your current brand. You can always take it, but maybe that's more social listening part. What we are talking about is spotting trends, right? So think broad at this point of time. So there are earlier Reddit used to allow us to do some API integrations, which made scraping easier. Uh, it's not that freely available, but there are ways for you to kind of really think about this as well. And again, this is more in the DIY space. I'm sure there are tools available that are platforms available who do this as on charged basis as well, who are more sophisticated. But if you were to think about really being hacky, really being doing this yourself, an LLM is your best friend, or Gemini. Just go ahead, take a pro version of Gemini or a ChatGPT and just like go ahead and ask them, uh, this is what I want to do. These are the subreddits that I would like to kind of really scrape and understand what's coming out. You may get a 60-70% accurate answer. There may be some limitations over there, but that's fine. You will at least start with something. Instead of not doing anything and not looking at this as a data source, you would at least start building your gut and hypothesis on what's happening and what are people talking about. Now, you can also assess or build agents for you on the LLM that can actually find which are the subreddits that are of interest. And therefore, then kind of go ahead and execute your queries or your scrapes for those subreddits. Or you will have something that is specific. Like, for example, for skincare, there's a good subreddit called India Skin Addict or something, Skin Addicts. I think if you just scrape that, you will be able to find a lot of insights around what are people talking about generally about skincare in India. And then you can kind of really build your go deeper into specific ways of doing it. So think of it from a spectrum, and I can obviously tell you some of the easy hacks. The easiest hack where there is no reason why none of us like, there's no reason for you to not do it. If you like a Twitter thread and there is no API integration, you don't know what to do. Just take screenshots of that thread and then put it onto your LLM saying that these are the 10 screenshots or images that I have. Just analyze on what are the key pain points that are coming up or that are the friction points that are really coming up. It's that simple. And the LLM will analyze those images for you and then throw back what comes across. So if you can't set up agents, you don't have API integrations, it's absolutely okay. You can still use I would recommend at least use an LLM to have a conversation and go deeper over there. But if you can't even do that, maybe the crudest way of doing it is taking pictures. And wherever you get stuck that I can't do this or I don't know how to do this, just ask the LLM again. Right? Just ask a Gemini saying, I don't know how to do these API integrations. I don't know how to build an agent, but I am interested in doing this. Can you help me? Can you put a dashboard for me on this? And you will get the steps. So the most crude way is maybe like taking images, to the most sophisticated way is that you build agents to do your identification, to do the scraping, and then maybe another agent to actually make or write a report for you. And then you get everything together in a more automated way. And then maybe the future forward is like the trends that I spotted, what happened with them, and there could be an agent who does that as well, right? So there are different spectrums at which you can automate things, but start slow somewhere and start measuring or looking at some of the elements, right? Let me see if I can show you actually if my screen is visible. And Tushna, you can guide me. Um,
We can see the presentation for now.
can you
Yeah,
see Gemini
we can
screen? Yeah,
see
this is
Gemini.
just the prompt that I gave folks today. It was just about saying that, hey, there is this particular thing. Can you help me understand this? And in a second, I've got like something like this. These were the posts that were analyzed. Obviously, I've not done some sacrosanct analysis on this per se. Then what were the themes that happened? And I can now start talking about, I want to know more. It's just the prompt that has enabled me to see some 2000 odd comments over here because I gave it some last 30 days kind of a. So I think that's what I wanted to show you. It's that simple. It's just that we have to start somewhere and kind of get into the practice of doing things, right? So this is more, I would say, an area where trend spotting can happen and you can understand what's really under the hood, what are people talking about in spaces that matter to you, and then kind of go deeper wherever you think there is juice, right? The second thing that we do quite often is building synthetic personas. There is a lot of literature on this as well. It's a topic that's coming up, but how do you actually build a digital twin? Now, certain companies will have a lot of data. They will have like rich ethnographic data. They will have data that actually surveys data, and you can actually build a persona by feeding all of that to an LLM and making a digital twin and saying that, writing a custom GPT and then saying that, okay, man, now this is going to respond as this particular persona does respond. So you can put all your transcripts, all behavioral studies, whatever you have done. And these are not just like bots, right? They are digital twins. So creating that is going to give you like a superpower where it won't replace the humans, but if you have an idea at 3 o'clock at night, just chat with this specific digital twin and give that idea, and then you will get some idea. Somebody had once told me that there was some flavor testing that they wanted to do before a flavor launch. They actually kind of asked uh, but this specific persona, and kind of actually that persona helps bring it down from some 100 to 25 or whatever. I don't know how scientific or whatever. And then they put it into consumer testing, and FMCG company was trying to do this. But that's how consumers are like, that's how companies are also thinking about using the digital persona, right? I mean, if you can't test 100 things with the consumer, let's build a synthetic persona, let's test it out. Now you must be thinking like, what if I don't have that rich ethno data? It's absolutely fine. You can start off by using the LLM to get the signals about the persona, then feeding that into a custom GPT or any persona builder that you're actually creating. And then you can do whatever you want, right? Like you can use the information that's available on the internet to build a persona. And once you build a persona, you can use it for testing. You can put it for ideas. You can make it one watch out on synthetic personas is don't take everything at face value, make it or use it to critique it as well, right? But it's a very, very powerful tool for you to get a early voice of the user in some capacity inside the rooms. The third one is bioanalytics or neuroanalytics. It's always been around, but earlier what we used to have is we needed a big space where you actually had to lab, consumers had to come, wear a big helmet, eye tracking, neuro, all of that used to happen. Now with technology, there are players also who have evolved. There are other systems also that have come in, but you can actually see how micro emotions change when a consumer is going through a journey, or when a consumer responds to a packaging, or how the eye gaze is going to move from left to right, right to left, which parts are going to be visible, which parts are not going to be visible. And then because there are companies who have done it for years, it is possible that, at a low cost using AI also, you will get this real time. Uh, but this is another way of passive measurement where you actually can use bioanalytics and actually think of subconscious reactions to the consumer without asking anything. One of the problems of stated consumer research is people will justify, people will present some rationale, people will not want to be rude to the interviewer. All of these are real world problems that we face, especially in India, which we call as a high overstatement market. We don't want to be rude to people when we are talking to strangers. So you find that passive measurement or passive techniques are stronger signals because you're not asking anything, you're just observing. The last bit is about social listening. This goes like beyond text, right? I mean, you are like, it's actually more visual. You can build tools or use AI to kind of really analyze images, anything that's coming across, emotions that we spoke about. When you get feedback through, whether it is calls, whether it is through your email channels, you can actually use AI to build a sentiment analysis. You can actually figure out what the emotion is. Is there a sarcasm? Is there irony? Is there positive versus negative both together? So you will be able to pretty much decide how the user actually is solving for this, right? So this is again some way in which you can think about it. So as you think about building uh, building this overall ecosystem, there is obviously one play which is about spotting trends. There is this other area where you can actually build personas and go closer to the consumer without actually going ahead and testing and use that as the first filter. Then there are tools from a social listening standpoint that one must really look into and see what consumers are talking about. Again, you can use the same channels that you have that we discussed in your in the scraping the fringes part, whether it is a Reddit, a Twitter, or some of the other channels that are available, or your own channels where consumers are feeding it back to you. But analyze all of it together, and you can keep going richer and richer. You can put synthesis of data together, different layers or different over a period of time. You once you start doing it, you can expand. But at, even at an ad hoc level, it does add a lot of value. So that's the what part of it that we covered, and this is how the AI actually can help us go closer to the user and much, much faster and low cost, right? The next bit is on the how. Here again, like I was saying, everything has been pretty much touched by the labor part of the how is now pretty much removed because of AI. You have now AI that can draft your survey logic, draft your questionnaires, make discussion guides. Again, you can use an LLM, make a discussion guide LLM, and then give your principles once so that the custom GPT now starts thinking of this as a as a researcher, and then can craft research discussion guides as you want it to be, one pager long, whatever you want, but it'll do what you are asking it to do. Even at the phase of the field work, you will be able to now actually go ahead and do mass moderation. There are actually AI agents who can conduct interviews. They're not really great, but they're okay. You can potentially think of using multiple AI agents to do parallel fieldwork for you and conduct interviews. If you don't want to conduct interviews, that's also absolutely fine. But at this, you will be still be able to leverage the real-time transcripts, because once you get the transcripts, you put it into the part three, which is synthesis. You put it with AI. So any conversations that you have with your users or any survey inputs that you get, you can actually leverage uh, the AI to transcript everything in one go. There could be live transcripts. You can cut snippets while you're talking. So if there is one specific part in this conversation that appeal to you, you could actually cut a snippet with AI and just play that part, right? I mean, shorts. And that is another way to get the org attention or cross stakeholder functional attention. You will be able to reach people far more with visual with an audio video clip saying, hey, this is what the user was saying, this actually makes a lot of sense, and this is the voice of the user, instead of it being hidden somewhere in 30 slider 50 sliders, right? At the synthesis point as well, we can pretty much code anything and everything very, very fast now. Your open-ended data or the data that generally would come across as those transcripts, use AI to automate a lot of your pain over here, and you will be able to kind of real. So the how part of it, I I call the what plus as the more intelligence part, because it actually makes us smarter. This is all about efficiency. This is all about making our life easier and cutting down on costs and timelines, right? I mean, if everything is just there with you, it's criminal to take a long lead time for any kind of analysis. You should be able to do things really, really fast. And now with the help of AI, we are able to do that as well, right? So just think of this more in the zone of how can we build efficiency in the different things that we do. And we can start small. You can start with live transcripts and the synthesis part, or building a discussion guide tool. You don't have to actually outsource mass moderation or build AI-led conversations. But if you feel the need, then you can as well, right? So this is my last slide, folks. This is essentially some rules or codes that I just wanted to leave you folks with. Uh, think of these as guardrails. Uh, Somebody who's just going to play with the chatbot versus somebody who's a professional, there should be certain elements or certain watchouts that you have to keep in mind because you're going to take decisions based on this, right? So this simple 6 truths that I would leave you with. The first, AI is like an incredible map maker, right? It will tell you the forest. It will scan like everything. You've seen like 5,000 things which I just showed you, 2,000 odd things. But we can use it for scale. But at the end of the day, you will have to pick the the signal that you really want. Whether to go for X or Y will be a human judgment, but you will get the broad trend basis AI. So use it, use that judicious, you have that caveat, right? Like AI will map the forest, you will pick the tree, or you will select the tree. The second one is the laziest thing to do is like summarize, right? We should prompts are going to be our best friends in this. So have the right prompt for tension, prompt for friction, prompt for contradiction. These are the spaces that are like really ripe for insights. Those are the prompts that are actually going to come up where there is some amount of tension. If you just ask for summary, I mean, by all means, start with the summary, but look for the tension point. The third thing is something looks incredulous or too good to be true. Just demand where is it coming from, right? Show me the exact quote. You will have to see the proof whenever AI is giving you some broad gyan about something. Just don't take it at face value. There is there is some amount of skepticism and cynicism that you have to inbuild as you go in this journey. So do that as well. Have embrace some cynicism and demand some verbatims as you think about this. Now, it can't fully replace whatever is happening, right? I mean, so therefore, I would say that always don't be in the echo chamber with even with your synthetic personas or digital twins. They will start telling you because you fed it certain things. Or always be on the watch out for that, right? I mean, get the 90% answer, but test it with few consumers. Have that human element come into picture at some point in time so you know that you've made progress, but there are checkpoints in place and you can actually kind of then feel confident and you're using it as a partner versus a replacement. I think that's one area that I would say. And the final rule I'd say is like just do it yourself. You will learn the most when you do things by yourself. Keep playing with it, keep doing this. This deck, for example, is fully made up by Gemini. I've not done anything other than giving it prompts. You just keep playing with it and telling what you're searching for and then spending time with it. Don't wait for the best answer to come through. Don't wait to go to an expert. Go to an expert when it's a seriously high impact, high implication piece. But other than that, make it a cultural thing for your orgs, for you specifically, and just keep using AI. You will learn it and build your hypothesis on that. But yeah, I mean, stay scrappy is my last advice on this. So yeah, that's all that I had, folks. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'll pause here, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them now, or feel free to reach out separately or through Tushna. Cheers, folks.
Great. Thanks a lot, Anup, for this. Super insightful. Opening up to questions, if anyone wants to ask about specific examples of how to do something or examples of how it's already been done by Anup at Swiggy, please. Yeah. There's a question from Urmit on the chat. I'll read it out. Anup, if at early stage, usually the founder is the head of insights. What are the top 2 or 3 AI tools that I should learn personally to understand my customers better?
I think getting a handle on one of the LLMs is critical. And how do you kind of really make learn in that journey? So I would say uh, one would be having either a Gemini or a ChatGPT kind of a agent available or an LLM available, and spending a lot of deep time investing in learning how it actually works would be one area that I would actually kind of encourage highly. Make a tool with the help of an AI, something that could be either a code or a non-code one, where you actually use Gemini or a ChatGPT to do something or build something is a great way to build your familiarity, even if it is not for the consumer part of it. It builds your familiarity. Or the alternate to that is use it for trend spotting. So from a tools perspective, I would say trend spotting and synthetic personas are the two that you should definitely give it a shot. Make any one of the LLMs as your best friend to give it a shot and try doing things by yourself. I think those are the two or three things that I would highly encourage founders to do.
Great. Uh, there's one more question. Can you
Mhm.
share some specific examples of this is working for conceptualize noise as compared to traditional innovation in FMCG?
So I think I generally think that the innovation process in FMCG is also evolving. So I mean, they are also, I would assume, uh, from the discussions that there would be a fair amount of adoption over there as well in those companies. They're no longer more in the traditional space, but there is a high data availability for a player like Swiggy, where we would know what's working versus not working quite soon, which helps not just for noise, but in generally, whether it is a Swiggy One Black as a program, subscription program, or any of the other launches that we would do, or benefits that we would launch. So we would know with the help of data itself that how a consumer cohort is responding, and then using that to feedback as a feedback loop to make tweaks and changes is a process that we have kind of built over the period of time. Some of you may be getting calls or emails from us in this space as well, but that's the real-time feedback that we've built over there. And like the tools that I spoke of, we do use that to spot opportunities, whether closer to our own products and services, uh, and maybe large scale as well, where is the market going or what is it that we are really looking to do. Everything is done in a really, really quick turnaround time, at least here at Swiggy, uh, because more than precision, we are more we put a premium on turnaround. So that is one tenet that we will always follow here. So I just opened
Thanks.
the chat.
There's one more from Jagdish. Do you guys want to come off mute and ask your questions?
How do you mind?
Yeah,
Hi.
sure.
Hey,
Sure.
Red,
Yeah, so
fine.
my question is when there is so much information available, right, especially through customer reviews and through analytics and data, how do you mine as in like how do you get customer insights? It will be great to understand with a real example from you.
Right. So I think, yeah, I mean, we would, I'm just thinking of a real example over here. But see, often, I mean, yeah, you would tend to integrate as much as possible, whether with data or with survey inputs and with qualitative inputs as well. It's more of a judgment and an art than a science. But then you look for themes that are repeated. You look for repetition in a big way. You look for patterns over singular inputs. Those are the areas that you're seeing and searching for, saying that, okay, this is what would really look like an area that I should pay attention to. I'm again not speaking about trend spotting. I'm keeping the question more in the realm of for your own service or product. You will marry or integrate different data sources and try to analyze it on what are the repeat patterns that you are seeing, and then try to put credence on it.
Got it. Thanks.
I'm thinking of a live example. I
So
can
just
think
to
of that
add
right
to
now.
that, Anup, if it'll help for color, right? I think the sources of data and insights on consumer behavior would be your own website's reviews, Amazon reviews, and ratings, help desk queries, chatbot chats that would be there on own websites. These are some of the sources of customer touch points that brands in our portfolio have. And of course, would be the independent chatter on things like Twitter or Reddit.
Yeah,
So if you've got so many different sources,
I'll tell you
of
one
course, we
AI.
could go hypothesis out on what we're testing, but do you have some examples on what should be a starting point?
See, one of the ways in which an AI-led tool that can help is like you can create a notebook LLM, which is a part of your Google repository, and then it kind of give the notebook all of these different data sources that you spoke of, and then let AI kind of integrate and see through the sea of the different data points that are there. And then you ask the questions and it kind of does that analysis beautifully. So that is one source or one way we kind of put it together. When we have different data sources, we would generally put it together in a notebook LLM and try to look at it. If it just becomes too much for us, or if this has become too much historic data, you want to kind of really see, then that will be like a relatively low fix or a quick fix kind of a way that I would recommend you to look at it. Try putting all the data sources in one notebook LLM and then let it analyze it for you. And then you can actually ask questions around it. It works quite seamlessly most times. You will still need to know what individual summaries for those items are. So again, you can use the input source for, let's say, the 3 or 4 data sources that you spoke of. Individually, I know my top 5 from each. I will look for repeat patterns in that. So I'm giving it the absolute weightage. And then I'm putting all of that together and giving it to the LLM and saying, okay, now if you have to hash it together and tell me the broad story, what does it look like for you? So you can actually look at an AI way to kind of really generate this. So that is one way. The other way is sequential, which is more in the zone of I know, or sequential slash importance. You give something more, you know the pattern, so you know what is causal. So you first establish this data source is the one that is actually more outcome oriented, and then you kind of try to draw the branch saying what are the why, like where is the why happening here, and these are my potentially dependable variables, so I will look at these to answer this. So it follows a pattern or a hierarchy where you would say that I am going to give more weightage to certain behavior that has been exhibited, and then search for signals where I know that these signals will be available in this data. Certain signals or certain tools by themselves are loaded with negativity, where I will give it lesser importance. For example, if there are Play Store reviews that are always going to be loaded in one part of the side of the equation, then I know that that independent source is not objective enough for me. So I will have to factor that insights or factor that analysis while I think about using that as a source as well. But these are a couple of ways that you can do. You can mine it all together in an LLM. You can try doing it in a sequential way where you know that X is the outcome variable and these are all dependents, and then kind of go into looking at that. And the third one is more each one have an independent top 5 and then see for patterns. Okay, sorry, there are a couple.
Cool. Thanks, Anup. There are a few more that have come in the chat bot, in the chat panel.
I'll just
So,
say, yeah, just give
yeah.
me one second. We just answered. Okay. Which one do we have to answer? Sir, write the tool.
We've answered Jagdish. So Neeraj Chandani says, can one write the name of the tools in the chat? Okay, we'll share the recording as well. But I think we've recently just made Notebook LM for scraping. Then Urmit
Yeah,
asks about org structure when you don't have a. You were adding a few more tools, yeah.
yeah, no, I was saying I mean, ChatGPT and Google LLM are the ones that you can actually go for. And if you can use the slide on the what are you searching for, then I mean, obviously the slide also has some amount of information, but even your LLMs will take you forward in the journey, saying, how can I do this? How can I do this? I think this will be superficial. Challenge the LLM back, pick it more conversational, and you will be far more closer to the reality versus even just looking at my slide. But yeah, okay. Tata most have insights team. How can they integrate responsibilities in there? Yeah, I mean, you should start small, folks. I mean, there is no doubt. I agree with what Urmit has written over there. You would find it, but the importance is that there is some objectivity in this entire thing, right? If there is some amount of um, overlap / wasted interest, then queries can become manipulative. So that's the only watch out that you will keep. If I have to launch something that is a KPI for me, I would go and therefore search it in a specific way to make sure that the element throws that as an output. Could be a watch out that you have to keep in mind. So let it stay with somebody that is more objective, but it doesn't necessarily have to have this as the day job, right? I mean, I would say growth, even product, strategy. These are places where you can actually go, like customer support. For customer support issues, you can leverage this. I mean, it can be fully democratized. I don't see any reason why it can't be, but it will have different roles. I mean, the customer support individual may not be necessarily thinking about trend spotting, but the growth person may. So their roles and responsibilities will be different as well. The only caveat or watch out that you should keep in mind is that there is no pervasive incentive to tweak the output in any way. And there is a maker checker. I think it can be democratized. Okay, which AI tools are best for scraping? Like I said, I mean, you can use your notebook to the not notebook, you can use a chat gpt or even a Gemini. I showed the example on a Gemini where you just give it the right signal and you can actually analyze it. uh, it may not be the most robust, but given the constraints where APIs are not available, Reddit is also obviously they wouldn't want too many people coming and scraping it left, right, and center. So I'm guessing they are also not allowing that in a rampant way. So you do live with what is there, which also is sufficient. Uh, how do you distinguish between what complaining and an insight that someone actually is paying to solve? Okay, the second one,
Hi,
are there
Anup.
signals?
So I just want to clarify this question over here. So
Mhm.
so when we do any research on the Reddit, right, we
Yeah,
usually see a lot of threads over there, and most of them are about complaining. So I want to understand how do you figure out the signals which can lead you to an
yeah,
insight about the NPD or any specific uh,
right.
category per se versus just the complaints that you see over there.
Yeah, no, look, yeah, yeah. If you think, I mean, yeah, see what the context is very, very important in this case, right, Urmit? I mean, if you're searching for a signal about a category growth, I think the subreddits that you're going to look for, I'm not even going to go anywhere closer to a Swiggy subreddit, for example. I I wanted to learn about skincare, I would go and learn about skincare as a category. So when you have that as your landscape, you're not thinking brand at all. You're thinking really big at that point in time. I may even go to a Korean skincare skin Reddit and learn over there. When I'm thinking about my own brand or areas that I should go for, then sure, I'm going to do it in a more controlled territory in my uh, influence, so to say. And now within that, I know that there are certain signals that are more important versus less important based on some of the other triangulation data that also comes up. And some of this is always going to be noise. Some of this is always going to be consumers being consumers who are demanding something. And that experience and exposure each brand owner will have, saying, okay, the first layer is this something which is just a rant versus this is something that I think is meaningful. That judgment a brand owner with experience will have and will take a call judiciously. The second is whether it is ad hoc or whether it is consistent. And then sometimes there are consistent rants as well, and you can't do anything about it. And it's okay, but it will be a conscious call of not doing something on a specific item because of conscious calls that have been taken in the past. But you may sometimes feel that a decision has been taken now that has led to some kind of a change. For example, if you've changed the formulation of your, say, tea, and consumers have started noticing or playing back tea quality rants, then that is not a small problem. You know something you did in an input, and now that has got played back outside. So it may be small signal, but you may immediately take notice of that. But if people have always cribbed about pricing for your tea brand, and that continues to happen, and you know that there are constraints on which you can't do anything on pricing, you will know that, okay, you know what, like this always comes up, but I can't do anything about it. It's okay. I will live with this. So you will see the intensity of pain. You will see what surprises you versus what is consistent. You will see what you have done internally and that is being replicated outside. So these are dimensions with which is why, like I said, had done the slide there. AI will help you with the forest. The tree is something that you will be able to select. Right. What's the last one is the final interaction happens offline. Yeah, sure. How do you collect the data and measure performance or insights? Right. Personas here where you test some features first and get, yes, actually both on how would you, okay. Uh, yeah, what you do is you can get a signal even if it is offline, right? I mean, so if it happens, like we are fortunate in our case because the transaction will still happen on the platform. So even if it happens offline, there is some, if the transaction has happened, I mean, discovery we may not have any signal. But if the transaction has happened where a purchase or a payment has happened, then we have that signal. So we will leverage that to get feedback uh, from the user. So that's how we actually do the measurement or collect the data. The discovery level data uh, in a tech setup, it's still easier because what you know is sessioners. So you will know even if a transaction happened or not, if somebody sessioned with you or not. So if that is also a signal that is there. In an offline, if you don't have that as a signal, then obviously like there has to be some sample-based methodologies or something else where claimed level methodologies that you will have to engage in, or with telcos and stuff. There are different variables that you can consider for identification. We are a little more fortunate in that space from an identification perspective. Um, there is a role of synthetic personas. Yes, we can. We do have synthetic personas that we build, and we test out ideas with them. It takes us forward in the journey, but it doesn't replace actual physical testing. It's just that it's some extremely random, wild ideas that we may have, and not everything gets tested for budget slash time or just the stupidity in the idea itself. But we have now the ability to actually just pitch it and check what comes out as well. So yeah, we do check that out as well. It is not seen as a big stage gate kind of thing, the personas thing. It's more of a helpful aid. Cool. I think that's all that were there, but feel free to reach out, folks, now or separately or with Urmit or Tushna. I'm happy to help. I will share the deck with you, Tushna, and then.
Sure, and I can sir. Great. So, if no other questions, then thanks a lot. Thank you, Anup, for sharing those insights with us. Thanks, everyone, for participating and sharing the questions. And have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, folks. Cheers.